Hi and welcome to The Winning Factor. I'm Aitken, and on this show each week we try and look at a couple of the races coming up in Hong Kong and focus on a particular element of those races which we might look back on later as having been decisive in the result. The first race we're going to have a look at on Sunday is race 1, and our winning factor here, the pace. Now this is a fairly open race as we look down the field. We've got plenty of horses with claims, Khaki with Sylvester de Souza aboard, Picken, who's won his last two for John Size, Sam's Love, back to a suitable race in Class 4, Win-Win, a nice debut run, Enjoy Life, always a chance, and Empire Star having his first run, John Mort. So there are plenty of winning chances in this race, but we're going to have a closer look at Picken and why he looks the horse to beat here, despite and maybe even because of his wide barrier. Now first of all, we're going to take a look back at the last time that Picken had an inside draw and more importantly an inside run, and that was on International Day. And he was favourite for this race in race 236, finished only 11th. But if we have a look where he is in running, and he looks very uncomfortable there on the inside with horses surrounding him. And he really didn't put in his best effort or run much of a race at all. Now after that he went to race 277. John Size took all the headgear off him and he drew an inside barrier again, but this time Joe Moreira was very conscious of being aggressive on him early, putting him up on the speed outside the leader, and this time he didn't have horses surrounding him in the run. He looks a lot more comfortable despite the fact that he worked hard in the run. You can see on the heat map there that this was a fast run race early, the leader's tired, but Picken was still very tough down to the line to win the race. He won again at his most recent run. This time he drew outside and went forward, and as you can see from the heat map on this one, the pace wasn't quite as brutal, but this time Picken had to be tough for a different reason. He was stuck 3 wide without any cover outside the leaders, and that's always a difficult thing to go on with. But he was brave again, kept lifting his game, and was able to fight back and beat Noble to Love, who'd had a perfect run through the race. So in those videos we've established a couple of things about Picken. One, he's a very tough young racehorse, and secondly, that he is probably better with a wider gate where he can be out without horses surrounding him, and he gives his best effort when he's got clear room. So both of those ideas will work into his assignment coming up on Sunday. Although he has the wide draw, we'll look at the map here, and he'll have plenty of room to gallop. There doesn't look to be a lot of speed in this race, and Joe Moreira will likely press forward again early, looking for a similar position on the speed that this horse seems to enjoy, while a number of his key rivals would probably like to see a bit more pace in the race. So the tip in race 1, Picken, his winning factor, the pace. We've seen that he's quite tough, he's drawn to suit, but I think the lack of speed in this race should enable Picken to get to a place that is suitable for him, and a pace which isn't going to be suitable for some of his rivals. Now the second race we're going to take a look at for Sunday is race 6, and this time our winning factor is the stable change. Now let's have a look at the field for race 6, and the most interest here is going to centre around horses like Comfort Life, Super Giant, Famous Warrior and Unicron Jewellery coming back to a mile. But as our winning factor would indicate, we're going to centre here our attention on a horse who's recently changed stables, and that is Super Giant, who has moved to Casper Founds last month, and connections of this horse would still be entertaining the possibility of a Derby tilt. And recently Casper has had some good fortune with horses in these similar connections. We're going to take a look at what he's done this season with his stable transfers. Now we always refer to Casper Founds as one of our leading trainers with transfer horses, but so far this season he's had 12 for 3 wins, and Avellino was quite unlucky getting beaten at his first run for Casper. But I'd also like to point out we can reduce that further by taking out the horses who clearly weren't fancied in the market here, 3 of them outsiders, and that starts to look more significant. 3 winners from 9 and 1 very unlucky second. You might also notice from that list that several of those horses were in the same ownership as Supergiant. Fearless Fire was able to win a couple of starts after joining Casper Founds, and Super Lucky was able to win at his first time out. So Casper will be keen to continue that run with these owners, and also with a horse of this quality who's probably knocking on the door for those 4-year-old classic races. Now we're going to briefly look at his run so far in Hong Kong Supergiant. And we go back to July last year, his first run in Hong Kong when he was at triple figure odds. And this was a super effort in a 1400 metre race, coming from last to finish third. Then we're going to look at his first run this season when perhaps a touch disappointing, but this was a race fought out by horses that raced up on the speed. Once again from a wide gate over 1400 metres, Supergiant was back with the tailenders and ran on. And then he had excuses at his most recent run. Now, I want you to note carefully where he is in running here, Supergiant. This was a step up to 1600 metres. This time he had a good draw, and Zac Purton was able to put him up fairly handy to what was quite a fast pace. Unfortunately, the leaders in that fast pace got very tired from about the 500 metres, and they dropped back in Supergiant's face as they straightened for home, and the race really went away without him. He got out late, but things were well all over by then. Now, since the move to Casper Founds in December, Supergiant has had a trial, and Purton rode him again here. This time the horse had no headgear on. He had blinkers in that previous run over a mile, but he had no headgear on here in his January 4 barrier trial. And he gets back a little and then doesn't get any room at all in the straight. So he looked full of running. It was a fairly uncompetitive trial, but it was still a guide that he looks to be going well since joining Founds. Now on Sunday, the trainer has gone for a hood to replace the blinkers amongst several gear changes for Supergiant. And I expect that that should enable him to be able to keep some sort of a position, midfield, or maybe even a touch closer in the run. And if we have a look at the map, that looks an important point in his favour. There isn't a lot of speed here. If he can be as close as last time Supergiant, or maybe not even as close, but within striking range, he's going to have a bit in his favour here. So the tip in race 6, Supergiant. His winning factor, the stable change. Casper Founds has been going great guns this season with his transfer horses, and he'll be keen to keep that going with another from this set of owners. And of course, with the 4-year-old races imminent, he'll want this horse up and running. So that's it from the winning factor this week. Good luck on Sunday. We'll see you next time.